Welcome to Chapter 10. This is a fun chapter using SQL or SQL. You can call it either one. Both are acceptable. In this, you get to write the code behind all the stuff we've been doing in the past. The queries, the sorts, all that kind of stuff. You get to write the code to do that behind it. Now, it is very important that you never go into your design grids to do your queries or your sorts or anything like that. If you do, I can tell, and the whole thing's wrong. So make sure that you only use the Sql View, do exactly what the book says. If you open it in the design grid, it will write extra code, and I can see it, and it will be wrong. So just telling you, make sure you write all of your own code. And that even goes for, don't check it in the design grid either, because if you've typed all your code out and then you open it in design grid, it'll spit all kinds of extra stuff into your code, and I will think that you have done the whole thing through the design grid. And the point of this is for you to learn how to write your own code, to understand that there's more to access, and if you can write your own code, be able to put on your resume that you have used SQL or have a little experience with SQL, that will go a long way in helping you find some jobs. Alright, so using SQL, Chapter 10, it really is a lot of fun, and if you did any programming back in the day, then you're going to love this. And it's very much the same thing. You have to be very careful about your spaces, your colons, and all that kind of stuff. Capital letters and all that kind of stuff really doesn't matter, but for the sake of being easy for you to read your stuff and trying to figure out what went wrong if something goes wrong, then you always want to put your code in all caps, and anything else you're going to put in mixed case. Okay, now also with the database in Access, you only have to put brackets around field names if there's a space in between the field name, and we've talked about that a lot. You do not have to do it if it's a single word for that field name. However, in this book, for consistency's sake, they are putting brackets around all of the field names. So I would suggest that you do the same. And in your real life, you can choose to use brackets or not use brackets. Alrighty. With all of that being said, make sure that you have opened up your Bavant database. And if you're saving it separately, save it into your Chapter 10 folder. And we are starting on page 621. Now the first thing they're going to have us do is change the font size so it's something easy to see. Now the book has you changing it to 10. We're going to the Backstage and Options. The book has you changing it to 10, so you do what they say. In real life, however, if you are losing your sight, like the older we get, the worse our sight is, then you can make it bigger. But for now, we're going to do exactly what the book tells us. Right now, it is set at 8. Notice I clicked on Object Designers, and then I go down to the Query Design section and Query Design Font, and we're going to change the size from 8 to 10. Now I'm telling you, in real life I would probably change this to 12 because, yeah, gotta wear glasses now. So we say okay, and that's going to make it a little bigger for us to see. Now in our view from here, we're going to go ahead and close our navigation pane, go to create. So this is all the same as it's always been. Alright, then we want to create, and we're going to use Query Design. Now this opens it up in the grid that I tell you that you cannot use. If you use this, I will be able to tell. So from here, we're going to close the show table. We're not using anything. Notice that this is still blank. From here, we are going to choose the Sql views, or the SQL view. You can just click on it here, or you can click on the down arrow and choose it here, whatever floats your boat. But you cannot, do not use design view for anything in this chapter, or the entire thing will be wrong. All right, Sql View then. Now, from Sql View, all we will do is type in the code. The first thing when you open it, it opens up with the select and the semicolon. The semicolon you will use at the end of your command. At the very end of the command. It's like saying, okay, I'm done. Some databases are very strict about having to have that. Some are not. So we're putting it in there. It is smart just to go ahead and do that to avoid any potential problems. So we are in Sql View. Now, the first thing we're going to do on page 624, we are going to tell it what fields we want to include in this query. So we're going to click after select. And mine put a semicolon automatically. I don't know if yours did or not. So backspace over that semicolon if it's there. Now remember, we have brackets around all of our field names. So bracket, and you can type customer space number, and that is number 1 on page 624. And if you spell it wrong at all, it will not work. It doesn't do anything for you. So customer number, then comma space, bracket. Remember, open and close brackets on everything. Customer name, close bracket, comma space. And remember, they say that it really doesn't matter about caps or not caps, but it looks cleaner and neater to read. And also, you know, once again, if you're going to avoid a potential problem, then you need to avoid it. Amount paid, and close that bracket, comma space, and current due, and close that bracket. And then we're going to hit enter, and we'll type from in all caps. Now remember, we're doing our SQL codes in all caps, so it's easy for us to read. Now we are selecting these fields from, and the from is going to tell us what table to choose it from. So from the customer table. So we're going to do bracket, customer, and close bracket. Now we're doing that even though it's a single space, even though there's no space in it, but that way it's consistent with everything else that we are doing. Then we're going to hit enter, and we're going to put the semicolon because we're telling the computer that, okay, we are done. Alright, so select, we're going to select customer number, name, amount paid, and current due, those fields from the customer table. And that's all this query is going to do. So we hit the view button, and notice that our first query shows our customer number, customer name, amount paid, and current due. Exactly what we said that we wanted it to do. So hit save, and we're going to name it, I'm at the bottom of page 624, chapter Ch10, Q for query 01. Okay, Ch10 Q01, and say OK. Alright, now I'm going to close mine, and I want you to see that it actually shows up over here, chapter 10, query 1. Now, you do not want to open it in design view. If you want to open it, all you have to do is double click, but do not open it in design view, because the second you open it in design view, it's going to change some stuff up, and I'm going to think that you didn't type your own code. So make sure that you stay out of design view. So that means with this table, our query selected, we're going to click on the down arrow and switch back to Sql View. Alright, and here's our code. Now notice, even with that, mine moved it my semicolon up to here. That is okay. It's the end, and that's all the computer's looking for. Now, on page 625, it has us, we're going to learn how to include all fields. Now, this right here, we could have done just the asterisk, because that would say select everything in the customer table. Okay, so we want to delete all this stuff, leave select because we're going to use it, but you can select that and hit the shift and the asterisk. Remember, the asterisk can be any amount of characters, any amount of fields. It's not just one. This is saying I want to select everything in this table. Now, by me moving around, it also got rid of my brackets, and that is not cool. So if that happened to you, make sure you put those brackets back in. And now, and make sure your semicolon's down at the bottom. We are going to go to View. And now we can see every single field in that query or in that table, right? Because we put the asterisk there. Now we want to do a file save as, because we're changing the name of that query because it's a new query. So we're choosing save object as, save as, and this is going to be chapter 10 query or Q02. So Ch10 Q02. Alright, it opens us back up to there, and then on page 627 we are going to go back to our Sql. Make sure you do not click on that. Click on the down arrow, click on Sql, and there we go. And now it's exactly the same, because last time I closed it and opened it and it changed up what I typed. So make sure that you're careful. Now, in this one, we are going to choose specific fields to include. So, just in case you've forgotten, what do we have to do, right? Select tells us the fields that we will include. So select, we are going to include the customer number. So bracket, customer number, oops, close bracket, comma, space, and also the customer name, bracket, customer name, and close bracket. And if you look, it is still from the customer number. Now, we are going to include something that limits it. So, a where will restrict whatever is being shown. So we can ask for a specific customer or a specific number or a range of numbers or a range of names. We can use wildcards here. So the command for this is where. Remember, our commands are in all caps so that it's easy to read. And then we're going to look at our returns field, close bracket, and our returns will equal 0. Now, for numbers, you never, ever, ever, never, ever put dollar signs or commas or percent signs. As soon as you type a sign in there or anything like that, it's going to either think there's something wrong or that it's a text field, and it's not. This is a number. So even if your number is 5,635,000, then you would just put the 5 and just write out the numbers, no commas. Now, if it's a decimal, you have to put the period so you can put in the decimal. But that is the only thing you put in that's not a normal number. All right? No commas, no dollar signs, no percent signs. So what we're saying now is where the customer number and the customer name from the customer table, they're also going to search the returns and find out who has returned nothing. So there is a 0 in the returns. Now, make sure your semicolon's on the last line, and then hit View Results. And notice we now have just 2 fields showing, and these are the 4 places that have absolutely no returns. Good for them. So file, save as. Not so hard, right? Save object as. And this one is going to be Chapter 10, Query 3. Alrighty. Turn the page. Now, on page 628, in case you've forgotten what your comparison operators are, they have a table listing there that can help you out. And notice the not equal to, that's the one that most people don't get. Now, on page 628, number 1, the second bullet says our select this time is going to be, so switch to your Sql View. Alright, notice it's still the same, and we can keep customer number and we can keep customer name. Excellent, less to type. Now, after customer name, we are going to add comma space amount paid. So bracket amount paid, close bracket, comma space, and current due, and close bracket. And still from the customer table, and this time the where is different. So instead of returns, we're going to look at the amount paid field. So our limiter, or our where, is amount paid, bracket amount space paid, and this time if they've paid, then greater than, for people who've paid more than $20,000. And remember that you cannot use dollar signs nor commas. So amount paid is greater than, you're going to have to type a 2 and then 4 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. For $20,000. No commas, no dollar signs. Excellent. Now hit view. And voila. There are the people who have paid more than $20,000. And our database goes ahead and adds the commas and the dollar signs for us, but that's the database doing it, not us. Excellent. So now we're going to save this query as, so file, save as, save object as, and save as, lots of saving, and this is going to be Chapter 10, Query 04, and say OK. Excellent. Now on page 629, now we will intentionally put in a text field. So let's go back to our Sql View and notice everything exactly the way we left it, but this time we're going to use only customer number and customer name. Now you are more than welcome to type all this over again, but I'm not. So customer number and customer name fields from the customer table, where this time it's the city that we are going to use as our limiter. So city, where our city is equal to Adelphia. So that tells us we want to find only the cities, only Adelphia. That's it. So we hit the equal sign. Now you'll notice in your book that there is a quotation mark around Adelphia. Okay, when you're using the design view, the computer puts that in for you, but in the SQL view, the computer does not put that in for you. So for all text fields, every single text field, you will always put, if you want it to work, a quotation mark around the text. So we're going to do a single quote, Adelphia, and then close the quote. Alright? And then your semicolon should be on the 4th line. Keep your fingers crossed and go to view. And these are the 3 customers in Adelphia. Excellent. So we are going to save that as, save object as, save as, chapter 10, query 5. And say OK. Alrighty then. Not so bad, right? Now on page 630, it teaches us about wildcards. You already know about wildcards. An asterisk allows you to replace as many characters as you want, and a question mark allows 1 character that's unknown. So let's go back to our Sql View. Notice everything's exactly the way we left it. And in this case, we're going to use customer number, customer name, but we're adding the city also. So we're at the end of customer name, comma, space, bracket, city, close bracket. Once again, we are getting this from the customer table. And this time, where city equals. No, not equal, because, let me explain. Since we are using the asterisk, we want to use a command called like. So remember, commands are in all caps, so like. That means that we don't have a specific town we want. In this case, we want all the towns that start with G. So we're going to use the command like and the asterisk after our G. So like, remember, since it's text, we must do our single quote and our G, and then our star, and then our close quote. Okay, so this is telling us where the city is like, starts with G, and we don't care what letters are after it or how many. Okay, so where city starts with a G is what we're saying. So we're going to go to View. Remember your semicolons down here on the end. Go to View. And now notice all of our cities start with a G. And we are so very happy. So we're going to do File, Save As, Save Object As, Save As, and Copy of. And this is chapter 10, query 6. Say OK. Excellent. So there you go. SQL is not that scary, but it looks really good on your resume. All right, we'll take a break. See you in a second.